for social entrepreneurs because you have this business model where you combine this social mission and kind of core vision in order to solve a social issue. It is very hard because combining those things, you cannot make as much money as a fully commercial business would do. It is all about try your best, listening to the communities, be brave enough to continue and not give up.
When most people hear the word entrepreneurship, they imagine venture capital, tech founders, or Silicon Valley garages. But what if entrepreneurship actually looks more like a group of women rebuilding their community after a disaster, or people creating business in places where capital networks and even infrastructures are at scarce? Today's conversation is about the side of entrepreneurship, the one that doesn't always make headlines, but often changes lives the most. Welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn. For over 12 years, we have been working with universities around the world that are shaping the future of innovation and entrepreneurship. And through this series, we highlight the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host today, and joining us today is Dr. Alina, lecturer in entrepreneurship at Alliance Manchester Business School, University of Manchester. Dr. Alina, great to have you today with us.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Great. So you've spent years researching entrepreneurs who operate in challenging environments, often with limited resources and complex ecosystem. So I have to ask you, after studying entrepreneurs for so long, do you feel like entrepreneurs are brave visionaries or just slightly crazy people who refuse to quit?
Well, I think both of what you just said kind of combines very well into what entrepreneurship and particularly social entrepreneurship, which I study mainly, is. Because in the end, I mean, for social entrepreneurs, it is very hard, and particularly if they operate in scarce and resource-scarce environments, particularly in low-income countries, and so on. So you have to be brave and really not give up as well. So that goes hand in hand, because there will be many challenges. You will face a lot of rejection, which in the end all entrepreneurs face. But I feel like for social entrepreneurs, because you have this business model where you combine kind of a for-profit business model, but also this social mission and kind of core vision in order to solve a social issue, it is very hard because combining those things where in the end you cannot make as much money as a fully commercial business would do, because you have to see what can the community actually pay, what is actually feasible in the target group that you want to benefit. It is very hard to make money and sustain. So in the end, it is all about trying your best, listening to the communities, and be brave enough to continue and not give up, and go on for the benefit of those that you want to support.
Interesting. Let's start with your journey. What first drove you into studying entrepreneurship and social enterprises? And how did that eventually lead you into academy?
Yes, so I never planned to work in academia or even do a PhD. I learned about social entrepreneurship first when I did my postgraduate in Hamburg, at Germany, where I grew up. So we had a course on social entrepreneurship, and I found it very interesting because, of course, I studied business, so I learned all about how to do business. But then this aspect that you actually combine not only, as I said, the financial value, but also kind of having this social mission and being driven by the social core of your business mainly really fascinated me, and I was always interested into how can businesses actually be also sustainable and have a social impact for the country, for the society, and all of that. So the concept of social entrepreneurship fascinated me then. So I wrote all of my master thesis about social enterprises, and it was mainly due to my professor who, at that time, because it was COVID as well, so I couldn't actually go out to do interviews and collect data. So we had to do it online. And my supervisor had a connection to a social entrepreneur in Kabul in Afghanistan. So he said, why don't I write something about social entrepreneurship in the context of war and conflict and this kind of environment? So I thought, okay, that's really interesting, because I was always interested in working maybe in an international development agency or things like this. So naturally it interested me then to write about the context of war and this kind of thing. So I was connected to this person, and he connected me to other social entrepreneurs in Kabul, where I was able then to do some interviews. And it was so fascinating to actually hear from those people who have an impact in their society, particularly women entrepreneurs who were creating some online businesses for women to be actually able to work from home, which in the context where they cannot actually go out was very important. And also many other initiatives that I found really fascinating, and also seeing people who struggle so much with so many things in their daily life, that they actually have the capacity to think about a business idea to actually turn it into a sustainable business. And so from that, I thought I really enjoy researching. I really enjoy talking to people and collecting the data and writing something out of that that might be useful and interesting for others as well. So from there, I started to say, okay, I'm going to do a PhD then. So I did that. I continued working on social entrepreneurship in kind of the context of disaster and difficult situations. So I did my PhD about social enterprises in Nepal, where there was also this context about how earthquakes, for example, and other natural disaster also influence the social entrepreneurial ecosystem, and how like people recover from this kind of thing. So yeah, and I continue to work right now also kind of in this context where it's very hard to kind of imagine, okay, how do people turn the situation or use a situation in order to create something sustainable and something that benefits the society. And I think that's very interesting and important. And yeah, that's why I continue doing the work, because I never stopped being interested into studying those entrepreneurs.
Amazing. Before we continue, this is for our viewers. If you are enjoying this conversation, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Tracxn channel. And don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss conversations with leaders shaping the future of entrepreneurship and innovation. So, Dr. Alina, a lot of your research focuses on social entrepreneurial ecosystems, especially in marginalized contexts, right? So, for viewers hearing that term for the first time, what exactly does a social entrepreneurial ecosystem look like?
That's a good question. Actually, it's much also kind of a new research area and a new area, because we don't yet exactly like know what a social entrepreneur ecosystem is supposed to look like to be successful. So we know in the context of the regular commercial ecosystems, and always the main example of Silicon Valley, of okay, this is what a successful ecosystem should look like to support businesses, right? So having the collaboration of academia, of investors, of kind of the whole support network that is kind of around that. So for kind of the commercial business, it's very clear because we have those examples. But then in the case of the social entrepreneurship ecosystem, it's not exactly sure yet, because we haven't identified a very clear example of, okay, this is a successful social entrepreneur ecosystem, and this is what others can basically also copy or kind of use as the guidance, right? So there are some indication in like some regions that have been studied, particularly in India a lot, because there are like the majority of social enterprises worldwide exist in India. So there we could see, okay, there is kind of an ecosystem that might support social enterprises particularly, but it's still hard to actually find that, because we also, I mean, there's a whole topic in research as well about how we actually measure social impact. So also understanding, well, we don't have this financial growth as we would have in a commercial area. So then what are we measuring the successful ecosystem on as well, right? What support mechanisms do we actually need? And now that we have, so we basically can look into the, let's say, traditional ecosystem structure and then see how those different elements play out in the social context. Looking, for example, at investors, and we can say, okay, now we have a growth and impact investing. So also investors actually not only not only measure companies by their financial output, but also by their social or environmental output, and then investing based on that and taking this also as a kind of a success measure. So in that area, there's already some initiatives and measures existing. Then, of course, academia as well as university systems that also teach and support social entrepreneurship. I think there we also see growing interest, because we have more and more universities that teach on social entrepreneurship as well. But I think that also that it's more or less the beginning, because there can be more done, even if I look at my institution, to actually implement also more kind of social entrepreneurship teaching there as well. And then also, of course, networks around that. And that also goes a lot into the question of what is a social enterprise, because when you don't have a very clear definition, it's very hard to know, okay, who is actually part of the community, who is part of the networks. And I think those kind of inconsistencies throughout regions, throughout even the same region, makes it also hard to have like this clear ecosystem. So I think because of this lack of clarity in many areas, it's still hard to actually say, okay, this is kind of a successful ecosystem, and here we have like a successful support structure. I think there's still a lot to be done to have all these actors actually working together and supporting social enterprises. But we see many examples, I would say, as I said, in India, and I studied ecosystems in Nepal, for that matter, as well. And we see there is support there, and people who really try to support social businesses as well, and creating kind of this networks around that. So, yeah.
Very interesting. And another important theme in your work is inclusion of marginalized groups through entrepreneurship. So what are some of the biggest barriers these groups face when trying to participate in this, entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial ecosystems?
Mm. Yeah, that's a very good question. And I've studied kind of marginalized groups, or like the organization of marginalized groups from different angles. One, so to your question, is like, if marginalized groups want to be entrepreneurs, how can they, like, what is the issue, no, as you say, for actually being able to do that, right? And I think a lot comes into, again, not having the right support structure, because I think for many people, if they come from a marginalized background, so it could be a minority, it could be migrant status of someone, so different kind of intersectional identities that people have, and then not actually finding the right support structures and not kind of believing that this is something I can achieve. So I think that, and I'm not advocating that everyone should be an entrepreneur, because that's not possible, but for those kind of groups where we don't really see role models, we don't really see not this idea of, okay, you can do this because we had others that did that who were from the same background as you, or also, as I say, so having networks, having events where they are also targeted particularly to this group, so they know that they are being addressed as well. And I think that is a good start to signal that, okay, no matter from which background you are, you can also become an entrepreneur, you can participate as well, and receive the same support as others as well. And I think from there, people will feel, okay, maybe this is something I can try. So signaling this confidence, I think it's a good start in order for people to try that out. Then on the other hand, because I studied the organization of marginalized groups, but more not from an entrepreneurship perspective, but more kind of from this, how do communities that are extremely marginalized organize themselves. So I studied this in Europe in the context of undocumented migrants who basically lack any type of human rights. So they don't have access to education, employment, health insurance, like anything like this, even housing. So because they're not recognized from a legal perspective and seen as illegal in that sense, they don't have access to those things. And then the question is, how do they actually organize themselves? So that's super interesting as well. I'm just like writing up also this study and all like seeing basically how people who don't know each other before come together due to this vulnerable situation that they're in, and creating some kind of family community, community that is based very strongly on family values, where people take care of each other, where they know they can rely on each other, even if it's a short time, because they know that like the next day they could already be somewhere else and all these things. So it's very interesting to see how in this kind of temporality that they are facing, how they still build structures of support. And this is very interesting to see as well.
Amazing. You also teach entrepreneurship at Alliance Manchester Business School. In your view, what role should universities play in helping students become entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think universities are very important. Of course, there are many entrepreneurs who did not have either formal education at all or did not study entrepreneurship particularly. But I think that for those that do, it's of course important in a way that you will not be a successful entrepreneur just because you took a course, but you get the frameworks, the mechanisms that you learn theoretically that can help you to start. And you can learn. So, for example, we in my class also, I know the colleagues as well, we invite a lot of entrepreneurs so they can talk to the students and give them actually real world examples as well, and talk to them of how they made it. And also, I think this kind of mechanisms that the university can provide can be very helpful to give a guidance and give kind of the first tools to start. But of course, it will not guarantee that this person will be successful as an entrepreneur in the end. But I think this is very important. But I had students who did not study entrepreneurship asking me if I want to be an entrepreneur, should I quit what I'm doing right now and just change the entrepreneurship course? And I was saying, well, it's possible, but in the end, it's not necessary because there are so many tools out there, so many like other support systems to become an entrepreneur. So particularly if you have a different background, let's say you're from engineering or something else, where you actually have a knowledge of a particular product or you know how to build something yourself, that can be very valuable as well. And I think then it's also more about getting into the right team, maybe having someone who studied business and collaborate to start something, because all of this particular technical knowledge of something is very important and can also lead to someone to actually start a business as well. So I would say within a university, it's not only important to teach entrepreneurship, but to also have a kind of support structure around that. And here at the Manchester Business School, we have kind of an entrepreneurship center as well. So any student, for example, who has an idea and would like to start a business can always go there and receive a support. So they will receive a mentor. They will go to different kind of training sessions as well. We have startup weekends and things like that. So I think having that for any student in the university available, I think that's very important to kind of nourish this entrepreneurship mindset and support, and know that there is some structure there that students can rely on.
So if you could redesign how universities teach entrepreneurship tomorrow, so what would you change?
That's a good question. I think that I would definitely implement more social entrepreneurship teaching, because I think that's the lacking in many courses. Because also there is like the division in the education sector. We say, okay, this is a course on social entrepreneurship, and then in this course we learn social entrepreneurship. And if you don't take this course, then there's another course with this entrepreneurship, and you learn kind of the classical model, right? I think, and there are many advocates already for that, to combine this and to actually say, okay, every entrepreneurship course should actually have also this social entrepreneurship element in there, to not like have some students who do not learn about social entrepreneurship, although they study entrepreneurship, and the other way around. So I think it's important to actually integrate different perspectives of entrepreneurship everywhere. So be it social entrepreneurship, also there's a sustainable entrepreneurship, so also more on the environmental side, to also have this holistic perspective already in all kinds of entrepreneurship courses. I think that's the main thing for now that is still missing in many entrepreneurship classes that I think I would change.
Very interesting. Let's do a quick rapid fire round. You can tell me first thing that comes to your mind. You can tell anything that comes to your mind. The first thing that comes to your mind when you hear entrepreneurship.
Oh, okay. I would say innovation and risk taking.
And most underrated entrepreneurial skill?
Underrated. I would say networking.
Impact or profit? Which should come first?
Mm, I mean, I want to say impact. Yeah, I'm going to say impact.
Okay, so one book you recommend to aspiring entrepreneurs?
One book. Okay, so just because I had a guest speaker this week and he very much recommended Million Dollar Weekend. It's a book about how to start a business on the weekend that will make $1 million. So maybe that's something. He recommended it a lot, so I still have to read it myself.
Interesting. So coffee or tea during the research?
For me, tea.
That was incredible. So finally, for our student viewers, researchers, and entrepreneurs watching today, what advice would you give them as they prepare for the future of entrepreneurship?
I would say these days it gets easier and easier to actually start a business, and it doesn't mean that the business is perfect and that everything runs smoothly. But you heard from many entrepreneurs, if you talk to them, that because of the new technology, particularly AI and these things, it's actually very easy to start a business on the weekend. So actually using platforms that build your website, that develop kind of your initial business model, and all these things. So I think that my suggestion would be anyone who actually has a really interesting idea for an enterprise should just start that. Should try it out without investing lots of money or anything. Just start by seeing, okay, who are the customers? Think through like what do you need in order to make money, basically. Who is the customer? Go out to talk to this customer that you think it is. Get the feedback. So test your product or service, whatever it is, as quickly as possible to actually see if there is need for this idea that you have. And then from there, kind of the next step start, right? It's not in the beginning, it's not so much about having a big investment and all these things. It's a lot about understanding what do I have, what do people need? Is there a match in that? So do I actually, because some people maybe have an idea, but they don't really know if this is something that many people need, right? And in the end, it's all about fulfilling a need of the customers. So really going out, talking to people and seeing kind of, is this something that people would spend money on? And then going from there. So I think many people struggle or are not sure if they should start, just because, of course, it's a big step to like think, okay, I'm starting a business and I'm going out there and asking people if they want to give me money for it. But I think that this is kind of the most difficult step, maybe even. And once you pass that, the rest kind of flows from itself. So yeah, my suggestion would be just to start with the simple tools that you have at hand, and then take it from there.
Amazing. Dr. Alina, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. In today's conversation, we explored how entrepreneurship can drive meaningful social change, especially in marginalized and resource constrained environments, and how universities and ecosystem can help enable that impact. It was truly fascinating to learn about your research and experiences. Thank you again, Dr. Alina. Thank you for being part of this episode.
Thank you so much. And if you have any more questions, any follow-up, then feel free to send me an email or contact me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to give any feedback.
Great. All the links will be in the comment section. And to everyone watching, if you have enjoyed this discussion, please like, comment, and subscribe to the Tracxn channel. And make sure to click the bell icon so you never miss the future episodes of School to Startup. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.